Let's check this out.
Men are reluctant to get married now. Now, what do we do about it?
I think the first thing you need to do is switch the laws to make them more favorable and fair. So, for example, the tender years doctrine, do you know what that is?
The tender years? No.
That assumes that the mother is the best one for the child under the age of 7. In some states, it extends to 16.
Yeah.
That's an openly sexist law.
Philip Smith says for $10, I just caught up, but Islam was what I was looking at converting to before finding you on whatever podcast. I'm now starting my conversion to Orthodoxy. Awesome. Awesome. Glad to hear it.
That's openly sexist.
What do you mean by sexist? Because, sometimes people say sexist, and if they're referring to real misogyny or something, I don't like that. But if they're saying men and women are different, I certainly
they are different, right?
Chancellor Palpatine is not evil. FB. That's bullshit. He had to save the Republic from the child kidnapping Jedi.
But what evidence do we have that the mother is the best one with the children?
Well,
the kids are the most likely to be abused by the mother, not the father, by the mother.
That's a little unclear. That's a little unclear because, for starters, as you just acknowledged, the children are much more likely to be with the mother, not only in the case of divorce, but also in the case of...
This is a debunked feminist talking point, by the way. Completely debunked feminist talking point.
Married couple,
why?
Daddies at work.
But why?
Why are kids more likely to be with mothers?
The way the laws are set up, it punishes men for being traditional. If you're a traditional...
No, when I say kids are more likely to be with their mothers, I just mean because even in a traditional family, I, Daddy, am off at work right now, and Mommy is home with the kids.
But, so what's your point with that?
My point is that and the statistics are a little unclear about this. There was a number from HHS in 2009 showed that women are much more likely to abuse or neglect their children. There's another number from last year from, I think it was the National Child Abuse and Neglect Data Set or something like that, which found that it's a little closer to equal. Women still have a slight edge on abuse, but it's close to sexual parity. But then when you factor in...
Not the biological dad. That includes stepdads. Not the biological father.
No, that's biological father.
No, it
is. Which data set are you referring to?
Well, they've done comprehensive studies over the last 100 years.
But what do you mean by they? Like, I'm referring to a very specific data set.
Okay, go ahead.
So in that very specific data set, that would contradict the 2009 numbers from HHS, but nevertheless, it would still prove your point, which is that the women are slightly more likely. But then I guess my point is, the women in marriage and outside of marriage are much more likely to be with children all of the time.
Right,
so the parity is almost
you would see
surprising.
the abuse numbers go down as women have spent less time with children. So in the last 50 years, women have worked more.
You're saying that children are more likely to be abused in a traditional family with mother and father, or you're saying single father and single mother?
Women are the most likely the ones to abuse the child. And even if you think abortion's murder, right?
Yeah.
So 1 out of 3 women's had an abortion. I've seen some numbers that say 1 out of 4, but the point is still the same. If 1 out of 4 men committed murder, we would all be...
abortion is murder.
Now, I'd like to actually know how Knowles is going to get out of this. Because when you're talking about abuse, I can't think of what could possibly be more abusive to a child than ending a career on planet Earth before it even gets to be alive. Right? Before it even gets to... So if you're talking about which sex is most responsible for abuse, that point wins it for Pearl. TubeSock YT says for $5, I greatly appreciate your opinions, Andrew. As a fellow Christian, I greatly enjoy your debating ability skills. What's your opinion on Latter-day Saints members? Well, okay, so because you might be a Latter-day Saint, I want to be very sensitive about this. They're fucking batshit crazy lunatics. That's my take on it.
But also, there's a lot that goes into that because there are...
And so I just couldn't... Sorry, go ahead.
Well, when we point to an issue like abortion, obviously, that is murder. It's not only morally synonymous, it's the same thing. But then also, the male abortionists are involved in the murder, the male legislators who pass the laws.
If I hire a hitman, I'm still responsible.
Sure, but so is the hitman. He goes to jail too.
Right, but there's far more women that are hiring a hitman than men performing.
This is actually a stupid point by Knowles. So let's see if we can't paint the picture. If 1,000 women hire the same hitman in this scenario, yes, the one hitman goes to jail, but it would be 1,000 women who would also go to jail, meaning that they would be more likely to do this crime than the men in this case, right? So like this point makes no sense. It honestly makes no sense.
The act.
Well, so I guess in every abortion, it's a woman who's procuring one.
Exactly,
right?
That's my point. And so my point is that law is openly sexist.
It's sexist, but men and women are different. So shouldn't it be sexist? Meaning, when a little baby calls out, a little baby is calling out for mommy, not daddy. Now, I'm not saying this is good. I think divorce is unacceptable in pretty much every circumstance. But if there is...
Fucking crazy Catholic lunatics. Catholic lunatics with their views on divorce are nuts. They're just fucking nuts.
Going to be a divorce. It would seem natural for a little baby to be with the mother rather than the father.
Even if you look at infanticide, it's almost unheard of for men to ever commit it. It's almost 100% the mother.
Well, that's
my point.
That's contradicted by one study.
I don't think it's right that men are not entitled to their children. It's 50% their DNA. It's 50% their child. Why are they not entitled to 50% custody? And
they should be entitled to 100% custody within the context of marriage, which is indissoluble.
Right.
But to the point you just made, where you said fathers don't kill their kids. Again, I think statistics are basically fake, but if people are going to cite them, I'm happy to cite them when they buttress my argument. And there was a study came out 2017, I think, from Forensic International Science, something like that, which showed that 57% of the time in cases of killing offspring, it's the fathers who do it, not the mothers. Now, again, I'm sure that one can put some other statistics
to
the other
side.
Go
into the abortion stats, too.
And obviously abortion.
My whole point is that I think that men should be entitled to their children. I don't think it's fair the way the system is. You know, regardless of where you fall, it's not fair that women get custody 90% of the time. It's not fair that men are always paying alimony, they're always paying child support, and that they are punished for being traditional. Because the more time they spend providing for their family, the way they calculate it in child support is they kind of do I gotcha. You know, you did the right thing, you provided for your family. Why are you punished in child custody cases?
Well, you didn't do the right thing if you got divorced.
Right, but it's filed by women 70 to 80% of the time.
It goes even higher, actually.
And
it goes even higher. So
if women are, college educated.
If women are college educated, but I guess this is the key, Pearl. To me, this is the key, because, the liberals love to say, see, college educated women, they favor liberal policies, which is true, but I don't think that college education signifies a, particularly strong education.
Okay.
To me, it's clearly a sign of liberalism. So then, I don't mean to blame the victim here if I'm talking about the men, but it would seem to me, if you don't want to get divorced, not marrying a liberal woman is a good place to start. If the more liberal women are, the more likely they are to divorce. It's almost like a truism, right? It's like saying, the more likely a woman is to support divorce, the more likely she is to divorce. Well, then why would
Okay, so Knowles, let's see how Pearl does with this. But Knowles actually just put himself in a corner here, and I would take maximum advantage of this where I say, well, they're all fucking liberals. But even if they weren't, the pool of females who are liberals are so high versus the pool of males who identify as being conservatives that you now have to contend with the new problem, which you have just stated, that there can't possibly be enough women out there for the amount of men who are looking to wife them up. That would be impossible, right? Don't marry a liberal woman, says Knowles. Okay, well, now you've taken out, 60% of women from the entirety of the dating pool, just like that. And even liberal men tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side than liberal women. So this, I would have really gone at him for that.
Man marry a woman who would support divorce.
What percent of women do you think are marriageable?
What do you mean by marriageable?
No tattoos, no debt, not overweight, doesn't openly hate men. It's not the majority, Michael.
What's the number?
These are confirmed by an actuary. It's less than 5%.
Which actuary?
Not,
like, what study is it?
It's called It's a World Without Men. It's
a study, or it's a blog, or a book, or what is A World Without Men?
It's a book, and they go through the numbers that are confirmed by an actuary.
So I saw that book. I saw that book.
But you know this, Michael, even in real life. You go on the Whatever podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
You go, I mean, you see Fresh and Fit Miami. It's not like, and I've interviewed 1,000 women. 1,000.
Yeah, yeah.
I've interviewed Christian women. I've interviewed Catholic women.
So I saw that.
And I've been on the other side of divorce.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've seen men.
Should have stuck within, man, she had a good opportunity to really hit him there. But instead she's like, hey, come on, man. It's kind of a come on argument, right? Like, come on. Come on. It's really where she's kind of going here. Sometimes that can work. Not sure it's going to work with Knowles. Philip Smith says for $5, yeah, because conservative women never let the we're feminist out and divorce men. Cough, cough, Crowder. It's kind of funny.
Men that did the right thing.
But I'm skeptical of your number here because look, I'm not like it's a crazy world. The women have crazy colored hair. They have tattoos. They do crazy stuff. But I saw that book. Maybe you had mentioned it, or someone on the internet mentioned it, and I didn't know, was it a study? Is it a this or is it a that? And it's this book by a blogger who does not really.
No, he's an economist.
So I read the book. I hate to be. I would encourage people.
I lost respect for Knowles and Chase when they started calling red pill men blank and degenerate. It makes no sense if you're trying to convert these men to marriage. Calling them names won't win them to your side. Love what you do, Andrew. Keep it up. Thank you for the $50 super chat. It's very kind of you, as we are still, of course, raising cash for the travel fund. Hit the $15,000 goal. Make sure that pisses off Not So Erudite. It was all kinds of upset that I asked for $10K for the travel goal to begin with. So we might as well make it good mojito money. Now, let me try to address this super chat. You have to be careful with your own cognitive dissonance on this one because of this. Your claim is that social shame can work in order to move people over to your side of the aisle when it comes to the greater conversation of culture. However, in this case, you're making the claim that Knowles and crew, who are, we could say, more on the Christian nationalist side, are trying to use the same tactic of social shame against red pill men in order to shame them to move people over to their side. So you have to be careful with this argument because it does kind of show us a little bit of cognitive dissonance there. That shame works or it doesn't work. In this case, it seems like you're saying, hey, when you tried to shame the red pillars, that didn't work for me. So the extension is, well, why would it work against these women who you're trying to move over to your side? So I would just take a look at that. That's all I'm saying.
People to take a look at the book. There, I open up the book. The first sentence of that book, there is one mistaken quotation and 3 grammatical errors in the first sentence. And then I looked for the 5% number. The 5% figure appears nowhere in the book. So again, I'm not saying that the world is teeming with women who are traditional and,
Would you agree it's the minority?
Who are marriageable?
The minority. Even if we look at just overweight. 70% of...
He doesn't. Okay. So, this is kind of nuts of Knowles to say. He just got done saying liberal women are not marriageable. Right? If he has that stance and he's saying do not marry women who are liberals or progressives, period, then basically he has to make the claim that most women are not marriageable. Just look at the voting patterns of women, right? Look at the voting patterns of women. Most of them vote and lean towards the progressive ideology. So he kind of has to admit that most of them are not marriageable by his own logic.
70% of women. Sometimes I think you guys are so out of touch.
I don't think
like 70%. You want a fat wife? It's like, come on, no, guys, this is what you're telling men to sign up for?
Well, what I'm telling men, I guess what I'm telling men.
And that's my point. It's not the majority. And when is the last time you dated? Like 10 years? You've been married for a while. So sometimes you talk, and I just think you're a bit out of touch with your current dating partner.
No, that's fair. You're saying I never swiped, I never did any of these things.
Correct. And I'm saying I've interviewed 1,000 women. I could give you examples in real life too. I mean, that's a ton of people, Michael.
Sure. So, sure. I have no doubt that the dating pool is difficult now. But the problem is that the state is the legal enforcement arm. Well, that's by definition.
Correct. So there's no way for a man to get married in 2024.
That's not by definition always true.
24 without being entered into the state contract.
But that's always
that has not always been true.
I understand, but I understand men's hesitation when the quality of
Why is he saying that? That has not always been true.
Women has gone down. But what if, I don't tell men not to get married or like what to do. I think every man has to decide for themselves. But I don't think you're going to win a lot of support, or I think you have to understand the problem in order to come up with a solution.
So you are telling men, at the very least, you're observing that it is not advisable today in 2024 to get married.
I would say that every man has to pick for himself. Okay. But I think objectively, if me and you sign a contract and one of us is paid to leave, you would never sign that business deal. You would never sign it.
I did, right? If you're saying that's the state of marriage now, I did get married, therefore I did sign it.
Okay, well, congrats.
Isn't that a dunk on himself?
Congratulations, but I think a lot of men are going to be hesitant to do that.
And you're saying it's rational for them to be hesitant?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's advisable?
No, not advisable.
But
I'll make the claim. Because Pearl doesn't want to commit to that. In the year 2024, for most men, over 50%, it is not advisable to enter into a marriage contract. I'll just state it plainly. It is not advisable for most men in the year 2024 to enter into a marriage contract. It's not a good idea. That's why this guy should be promoting covenant marriage.
Every man, like, okay, I'll give you an example. I'm not here. I think men have had enough of women telling them what to do. I'm not telling men to do anything. But I think your situation is going to be completely different than the average Joe making $45,000 a year. If your marriage goes south, you have the money to afford lawyers.
I have the money, but I'm going to lose half my money.
What?
But
do you think you're in the same position as the average man making $45,000 a year? The answer is no.
No, but the
answer is no.
I don't think it's because of my money, though. You know what I think it's because, well, look, when I got married, I didn't have a lot of money, but now I have more money. But I think there's a bigger distinction here, which is I am of a religious view and practice that does not recognize the reality of divorce. Not only do we discourage it, I'm a mackerel-snapping papist, a member of the Catholic faith.
I'm Catholic, too.
Why you make fun of Catholics all the time, Andrew? Because of the insane shit that this guy is saying right now.
You're Catholic also?
I'm also Catholic.
So, marvelous news.
Yeah.
FB says for $10, Andrew, what do you think about what Matt Walsh said about video games? I think he does have good takes sometimes. However, I think people like him are why we've been losing the culture war. I don't know what he said about video games, bro.
Yeah.
We do not.
And Catholics are not immune to divorce. I have seen it. I've seen people getting married for the second time.
Yeah, but we just pretend it never happened. We just pretend that it never happened. We pretend that our 12 kids and marriage that we had for 20 years just never happened.
They'll get communion, and the number of annulments is going up.
That's not licit.
I know, but it doesn't matter because it happens all the time.
But you can,
and so it totally.
I see someone who calls himself.
We have a record number of annulments this year in the Catholic Church. You cannot. The Catholic Church is getting more. You see the Pope, and I think we could agree on this stuff.
The Pope for all of the liberal statements that have appeared in the press under his name. The Pope is generally pretty good on matters of sex and marriage.
What? What? He's what? The guy who was like, yeah, go bless the gay marriage. Really? Okay. Okay. I mean, I feel like this guy's racking up his own L's here.
He's pretty clear. When you say
he's not really pretty clear. Okay, not really very clear.
Catholics get divorced. It has happened. There's a distinction between an annulment.
It's around. I looked it up before this. It's around 25, 35.
So that's how. Yeah,
it's around. Yeah, it's around 35%. And so that's not a small percentage.
What's the national average? Like 45% roughly. So
2024 it was 50.
Okay,
so I know everyone splits hairs over like the 5-10%, but regardless, it's not small.
So what that means then is that if you're a man, and I totally grant that dating pool's tough and the economy's tough and the divorce courts are terrible and divorce laws are terrible,
but they should sign up anyway.
Well, yeah, no. Before we even get to that, one way to mitigate one's risk in marriage of divorce would be to be just any old Catholic, right? Because you then reduce the likelihood of divorce by 16% immediately.
Big problem with this argument. Yes, you may mitigate the risk of divorce by, 15% is pretty substantial, okay? Still pretty high. Okay? But, yes, it does seem like it will maybe mitigate divorce. But it doesn't actually do anything for the mass quantity of men who are going through divorce, who are Catholic, and who are having the same type of kind of outcome that people who are not Catholic having. Why does Knowles endorse state marriage to begin with? Like, why is that? I don't get it. Why does he even care? If you're making because you're Catholic, it's better, why do they need to still sign the state contract?
16 percentage points, much more than 16% from the 50% number. So then, what if you're Muslim?
Okay.
Divorce rates among Muslims, even a little lower, 30%. Okay. Divorce rates among Orthodox Jews, 30, as low. There's a lot of different kind of Jews, but it goes down to as low as 10. And then you get down to a little more of the old school Catholics, which is kind of how I practice. There aren't great numbers on it.
Do you go to Latin Mass?
Traditional Latin Mass, the like.
Yeah, that's a lot of patience.
It's but frankly, I find it.
No, it's good. It's good. Latin Mass is a little better.
It seems like it goes faster than the shorter.
No, it's a little bit better in the Latin Mass. I'd agree.
But when it comes to divorce, the numbers are a little sparse here. It's like 5 to maybe 10%.
But the problem is with most of those stats. One, most of those studies were done before social media. Anyone that dated before and after social media knows it completely changed the game.
Good point.
How do you mean?
Well,
what
the hell does he mean? How do you mean?
Women now have access to men anywhere. And cheating goes up. Like dating, the number one way people are meeting under 30 is dating apps.
Yep.
This is a completely different dating marketplace than when you were dating.
Though I guess
and that's my point.
When I was dating,
there's no Catholic woman in divorce court. Women will throw out their religion very, very fast when they want to leave. You cannot pray a woman that wants to leave you into not leaving you.
I think you don't the statistics I just cited show that you can?
No, they don't.
No, but the problem
they would actually affirm Pearl's point. The religion acts as a buffer, and that possibly due to the environmental factors, she does not want to leave you. But that does not mean that just you deciding, well, I'm going to pray really hard and hopefully she doesn't leave if she wants to. probably not going to work.
With those is they include women over a certain age. The women under the age of 35
You're saying
have been on. So yes, it's completely different.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you can't really deny it with what you've seen. You go on whatever podcast. Are those the same women of our grandmothers and great grandmothers? No, it's completely different.
There's not a ton of Orthodox Jews and traditional Catholics on that podcast, but and perhaps there's a reason for that.
And you got to ask like the reputation. What's the reputation?
Wait, what did he just say?
You've seen, you go on whatever podcast. Are those the same women of our grandmothers and great grandmothers? No, it's completely different.
There's not a ton of Orthodox Jews and traditional Catholics on that podcast, but
so many people on that podcast identify as being that way. Yes. Many of them identify as being traditional Catholics who are not, traditional Jews who are not. This is affirming Pearl's stance. Just because they identify that way, you don't see them that way because you don't believe that they are.
But and perhaps there's a reason for that.
And you got to ask like the reputation. What's the reputation of Catholic girls?
Well, what do you mean? I mean, again,
that's my point. My point is they have if there was an abundance of wives in church, Michael, the men would be lining up to go.
But they do. The traditional churches.
Men are leaving the church.
If Catholic, would you convert because of the Pope? I could have converted to Catholicism anyway. I chose not to. Remember, I'm Orthodox. I can go to any Catholic church and take communion. They just can't come to our church and take communion. We don't consider them to be part of the actual Catholic Church. And so, no, I would not. I'll never convert to anything from Orthodoxy, ever. Never.
Under the age of 35, young men, church participation is going down altogether, but young men are leaving the church.
But what about the traditional parishes?
The traditional parishes...
They're exploding, and it's all...
Yes, they are. He's right about that.
Well, young people. I mean, the median age is like 22 in these parishes. And it's largely young men. So I totally grant you that a lot of modern religion has become quite effeminate and has driven men away.
Right, but I'm saying the Catholic Church is not exempt. It's absolutely not exempt. I've seen a lot of the same trends in the Catholic Church.
I guess...
Doesn't Tom Hanks identify as being Orthodox? Orthodox what?
My confusion is, though, you bring up these statistics, and so then we acknowledge the statistics that show that if one gets married, assuming that divorce is not a sacramental reality, that the likelihood of divorce goes way down. But then when we say that, you instantly say, well, actually now the statistics aren't worth anything because young people are different.
Wait, say that again? Sorry.
So
wait.
We agree that the numbers for Catholics, Jews, Muslims, Orthodox Jews and Muslims, divorce numbers are way lower. And you acknowledge those statistics, but they...
Not way lower.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
You don't? Okay, all right.
No, because most of those include women over a certain age.
Right, you're saying the young people, it's totally different.
It's a different time, Michael.
So what is...
And that's the same thing, like the time my parents got married in is completely different.
So what changed, other than now they have, so they meet on apps rather than at bars, and that's the big change? That's why we can't believe the statistics anymore?
Well, the average marriage is 7 years now, Michael.
Right, but we've had divorce, expanded divorce for a long time.
And what's happened to the rate since we've had it, Mr. Knowles? Has it gone down or has it gone up?
Had no-fault divorce in America since 1969. So,
and what's that done for divorce?
I acknowledge these are, by historical standards, relatively novel, but we're still talking like 50 years, right?
Not a long time.
More than 50 years.
I don't, I just think a lot of times I hear you guys' advice to go to church and find a good woman. And I don't necessarily think it's bad advice in general. But again, I think that times have changed. And I think a lot of times you guys are a bit out of touch with what the average man is going through in this country.
Well, what do you mean by the average man, I guess? Men come in all shapes and sizes. So...
let's get into the particulars. Okay. The men of average height who make an average wage, right? All these things are tracked by the way we can determine them. What's the average wage for men, the average height for men, what's the average, home size for men, blah, 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 blah. Whatever falls under that category, they're having a real fucking hard time. That's what she means by that.
Acknowledging the fears of the modern...
Do you think men have valid fears in getting married? Do you think any of it's valid, or do you think they're making it up?
Yeah, I think that marriage entails risk.
Okay.
But there are ways to mitigate risk.
There are ways.
It's a natural institution.
Correct. There are ways to mitigate risk.
Yeah.
But
what even is normal? What does that even mean? I hate that shit.
Because I don't know, when you talk about this stuff, you guys are just sorry, I don't mean to say you guys, but
please, generalize. It's okay.
But sometimes I'm just like...
Now, listen, I do want to answer this question on Hungary, but you'll have to send it in the form of a super chat because I'm raising cash.
How do you not see where the men are coming from? I've talked to men that did the exact same thing. That they took you guys' advice to a T.
What's our advice? Our advice is just
to marry. I've seen a lot of stuff from the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
Okay, might be you, might be other guys that say get married young, right?
Yeah, it's good.
To sign up. Okay, but I'll see guys that take you guys' advice, and sometimes it ruins their...
Okay, all right, Stephen. I notice your comment here. Let me refute what you're saying real quick. Marriage is a gift from God. Saying don't get married is going against God. Okay. Would you advise that Satanists get married in a satanic wedding where they cut open a goat and do a sacrament to the devil? Would you recommend that, Stephen? I mean, it's marriage, right? Would you recommend that they do that and that it's actually against God for them not to do that? Go ahead, Stephen. I'll wait for your answer here. Would you recommend that Satanists do a black sacrament, underground marriage? Because otherwise it goes against God. Would you recommend it? Would you, Stephen? Should cannibals get married, Stephen, and then eat a dead body after they're married? As like part of their meal, Stephen? Should they do that? What do you mean, asked and answered? When did you answer it? I didn't see any answer.
Their life.
Because they get divorced.
And the divorce isn't like the woman ruins their reputation. Mm-hmm. Calls him an abuser. And even calls him an abuser, says all these awful things. He hasn't seen his kids in 2 years.
It's awful. Yeah.
And it's the saddest thing when you see a man that's going through a divorce.
So what's the alternative, though? Because I totally agree with you about the risk and the pitfalls of modern marriage.
Well, I think that the laws need to change first. Because regardless of what I say...
Before people get married?
Well, it's not about what I say. It's about what people will do. You guys have been preaching marriage for a decade. Men aren't signing up.
No,
men aren't. The rate of but the rate of getting married is going lower.
Right, but we
less
also
and less men are getting married.
We redefined marriage at federal levels.
Correct.
But, we've also had divorce for 50 years.
Correct. No, you're right. You're correct. But I'm saying laws need to change. Personally, if it was Pearl's world,
yes.
And I think you're probably going to have to find somewhere that meets in the middle for something to pass. But if it was Pearl's world, I wouldn't have alimony. I wouldn't have child support. I don't think you're entitled to it.
Yeah, I would certainly eliminate no-fault divorce, and I would greatly restrict divorce broadly.
Yeah, but I think until you do that, you're going to have a hard time getting men to sign up, until women get in shape. Sure. If 70% of women are overweight, that's not a great sell to men.
But okay, so
80% of women gain 20 pounds in the first 5 years of marriage.
Sure. Yeah, that's no good. They should stay fit.
You should stay fit.
Well, no, they should gain a lot of weight to have children. They should gain so much weight because they're having children.
But this is my point. You're not going to...
Dude, this guy in the chat says Pearl's leg makes Knowles look tiny.
appeal to men by shaming them into marriage.
I'm not shaming anyone. I'm just recommending.
But I've heard you guys say things like you're not like a real man if you don't get married. I've heard this from the trad camp.
That's not exactly true, because some men are called to religious life, some men are called to celibacy.
Right.
But the ones who are not are called to marriage. Not merely because it's sort of fun, though it's fun, but because it's a natural institution. Because men have certain ends, we have certain goals, right? So one of them would be we want to have children. This is not just a preference, de gustibus non disputandum est. This is an aspect of the natural law.
I knew for sure that he was going to bring up this stupid-ass concept of the natural law. Natural law. Another misplaced Catholic belief, the natural law. Men naturally want to have children. Well, I'm not sure that most men naturally want to have children. What I am sure of is that if you give a lot of men the choice of being able to have as much sex as they want without having children, that many of them will take that option.
Oh, don't you think they should?
It looks like Pearl is debating a ventriloquist dummy.
Follow their purpose in God first.
That is part of their purpose.
Okay. No, I don't think so.
Natural law is not real.
That's. What do you mean?
I don't think men's purpose is women. I think men's purpose
having children
is well, why? Why is that their purpose? Even the Apostle Paul said it's better to be alone, or not the Apostle Paul, but it's
Apostle
even in
Paul was celibate, yeah.
But
well, to mention the Apostle Paul is celibate. But since you mentioned Christianity, it's important to remember our Lord is the bridegroom. The church is the bride. So from the Christian perspective, marriage is understood to be a symbol of Christ's love for his church. Now, that's the supernatural
But that's not how it's practiced today.
And some quarters it is.
But you can say my special religion, here's the exception. It's not across the board.
No, my true religion
that
built our entire civilization. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm a Catholic too. I'm a Catholic too. But
well, I'm just describing to you the Catholic view of marriage, which is different than the view you're
But it's not the way that Catholics are doing it if we have 25% getting divorced. That's not a small number.
Well, it's not the way that 25% are doing it.
It's 30. It's really 35. Yeah. But I try to be conservative because I don't want to go back and forth.
But to that point, Pearl, Joe Biden calls himself a practicing Catholic. He supports killing infants in the womb up until the moment of birth as a matter of
so do a lot of Catholics.
Law. So
But we get
a lot of Catholics believe in evolution. A lot of Catholics believe in all this
tricky territory when you get to play God and decide who's a Catholic and who's not.
I'm not playing God, and I don't decide the magisterium. But the deposit of faith does, the magisterium does, sacred scripture does, the vicar of Christ does, and on this point, all are clear. And by the way, I'm not even talking about marriage necessarily from a supernatural perspective, though I certainly view it that way. But there's also the natural perspective, which is that there is, you say men should follow their purpose and should follow God. I of course agree. So how do we know our purpose? Men have what? We have the scriptures, we have revelation, but we also have our conscience and reason. And so there's something called the natural law. And the natural law inclines us toward marriage. Men and women are, by our very nature, inclined toward marriage.
Hell of a claim.
You would disagree?
What kind of marriage? Are men and women by the natural law inclined to sign a document with the state where you can incentivize the other person in the marriage to break the marriage? Because that sounds like it would be unnatural law. That sounds like unnatural law, doesn't it? And does the natural law say that the marriage must be monogamous? Or can the marriage be polygamous? Which one? This is nonsense. Fucking nonsense.
No.
You wouldn't. Well, so there you go.
No. Well, sort of. I think men. Sorry. I think that in the current market, there are just not enough wives to go around. There are not enough wives to go. Women that deserve to be wives. In my opinion. Okay.
Sure.
You'd agree on that, right?
Well, I don't.
So
I don't know exactly.
No, he's wrong.
What do you mean by that?
I have to date never heard any compelling arguments for the Catholic natural law. I call it cope law. It's, well, we have to fall back on something. So what we believe is that there's some kind of like natural law which orders human behavior. I think that humans have a nature. That's true. But I'm not so sure about the idea that there is a natural law which necessarily compels behavior, because it doesn't seem to be particularly uniform behavior, does it? J. William C. for $10 says, imagine being a father. You found out your friends were watching your daughter's OnlyFans content. Tough times marrying a liberal woman and her enabling your daughters. We have to change the culture. There's not really much of a choice.
Maybe I would agree, but okay. I don't know exactly what you mean by it.
Okay. Do you think men should have standards?
Yes.
Do you think it's okay for them to want a woman that's in shape? Do you think that's an okay standard?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, a girl that's religious. Would you say that's good? Okay.
Necessary.
But that's not the majority. That's not the majority. So what are men supposed to do in the meantime?
They're supposed to convince the women to get in shape and get religious.
Good luck. I've done it for a year. Good luck.
You haven't had. Maybe the men would be more
ridiculous.
Persuasive than you would to these women.
This is ridiculous, honestly.
Good luck.
We're just going to convince the men to be better. That's all. We're going to convince the men to be better, and then the men will convince the women to be better.
Did the OnlyFans models quit that you interviewed?
I don't know if that. I've only interviewed a few on whatever.
It's classic. What about the men, though?
There's actually there.
I mean, miracles happen, but I wouldn't bet on it.
There are a couple gals. There are a couple gals who've written into my show, not from the Whatever podcast, but who were watching my show, and really watching in the member block and everything, who were both like online pornographers to some degree, and. One said she was going to quit. I kind of lost track of her in the show. Another one quit, had a major conversion, and what a wonderful evidence of the glory of God.
Was it the one on Twitter?
Yes.
Yeah, her OF link was still up. So a lot of times
she denied it. Someone said that was true.
Her OF link was still up. Yes, it was. I checked it. Yes, it was. I'm positive.
She posted it and showed that it wasn't still up.
It was.
I don't know.
Still up, but okay.
I don't know. She seemed pretty sincere to me. But in any case, are you denying the principle that people can change?
Yeah, I mean, God can forgive you, but men don't have to.
I don't think it's. I'm talking about repentance.
Repentance is good, but I wouldn't say that makes her wife worthy if you still used to have an OF account. You would agree that men, in general, should not date women that had OnlyFans accounts.
It's not ideal.
Okay,
I don't think it's disqualifying.
You can't definitively say that a woman. Okay.
I don't think it's disqualifying.
I think you're going to have a tough time selling guys on that.
I'm not convinced of it. I mean, to quote St. John Vianney, the saints didn't all start well, but they all ended well. So I wouldn't recommend that people get.
Yeah, and where did the saints say that you needed to marry former prostitutes? Which saint would you be looking at for that? Saint made him up. Would that be Saint made him up? Yes, there were saints who had, insane sexual histories. That's true. I agree that that's true. But I don't recall anybody saying, "Hey, you should marry former prostitutes." That's it's a pretty insane take. I'm not going to lie. Well, I'm not convinced that it's really totally disqualifying. I mean. I wouldn't say that it's a disqualifier that this gal sucked 1,000 dicks. I wouldn't say that that's a disqualifier. No, of course not. Why would you disqualify them from marriage? Why would most men do that? Why would they bother? I mean, yeah, it's not ideal that they sucked 1,000 dicks. It's not ideal that they did that. But, so disqualify, I'm not sure. Not sure if it's a disqualifier. He never said you should marry them. Actually, the should is implied here. And let me explain how, King. Right? He said that men should marry women. They should get married, even in modernity. He did say that. They should. He's alluding also to state marriage. He was not specific with covenant marriage. So if that's the case, and these women are not disqualified from being marriageable, then the implication there is that you should marry one. That would be the implication. If they're marriageable, marry one, right? They're not disqualified from it. Marry them. It's fine. So, no, I'm not so sure that I'm willing to grant you that he didn't say should. It sure sounds like a should. Dane Snyder sends in $5, says, watching these two gals talk was infuriating. That gal in the pantsuit kept interrupting the redhead to preach. I didn't like to hear women preachers. Lansing, well, I'm not going to beat up on Knowles. I think he's an intelligent guy. Lansing sends in $10 and says, I was waiting for that face this whole time. Knowles has lost touch. That's a fucking crazy. That's a crazy take.
Involved in porn in any way.
Okay.
But there's also, on the men's side of things, men are in a little rough shape because of our modern culture too. Mm-hmm. A lot are addicted to porn. A lot have hooked up with a lot of people. A lot of kind of indulged perversions and things like that. Mm-hmm. Doesn't make them particularly marriageable either.
But why is it whenever we say something about the women, we have to say but men?
Well, because it's an observable fact, and marriage involves men and women.
I know, but all I'm saying, Michael, all I'm saying is, don't date, it's just crazy sometimes. I can't.
At the Crucible, are you proud of Pearl using some of your arguments in lingo? I would rather hear you debate her than Knowles. So let me explain this to you. And this is the stance that I've always had. I don't care who comes up with the arguments. I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's somebody else who's much more skilled than I am. I don't care who it is. I like to see them refined and used as much as a person can use them on a higher stage so that we can have more people hear what we have to say. That's the goal. I'm not a gatekeeper that way. Right? I'm not like, I can't. Did you even give me credit for the? I'm just not that way. I think that that's silly. I want to see the arguments put out into the ethos. I don't care about getting credit for them. Philip Smith sends in $5, says, are Daily Wire spokesman for Islam or Red Pill? Because this is a type of talking points that push men towards those things. It's pretty rough, man. I'm not going to lie. Not a big fan of the Knowles approach here. Tom Bombadil for $10 Canadian says, most people need to accept compromises proportional to their own shortcomings. Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. So maybe you could say that, for instance, I don't know, a former porn star marrying a former porn star makes a lot more sense. I guess I understand that. But I'm not sure that was the implication.
I get so curious because I say, men shouldn't date women that used to have OnlyFans. That shouldn't even be an argument. That should be
I don't know. I mean, again, it's not ideal to have.
You wouldn't date a woman with an OnlyFans.
I wouldn't date any woman now because I'm happily married.
No, but if you were single, right? You wouldn't do that.
It would be an obstacle. It would be an obstacle.
It would be such a big obstacle.
It would be an obstacle.
Do it.
But he's not ruling it out completely. It would be an obstacle. It'd be something I'd have to contend with, but I'm not ruling it out.
But that's the problem. I interview guys that are dating a girl for 6 months. They find out she used to have an OnlyFans account. These are real things that happen.
Sure. Yeah. It's not ideal. Though, frankly, to your point, I've been out of dating for a long time. But these days, can one find a girlfriend? I mean,
Wicked Wally says he really thinks he knows it all.
So it can happen. But in modern kind of liberal secular dating, can one find a girlfriend who's never texted a naked picture of herself? I don't know. Women do this all.
Yeah, I think you can. But even if that's true, that would make Pearl's point.
All the time now. And then it becomes a big scandal when they get.
Yeah, and so do those women deserve to be wives?
I don't know that we deserve much of anything. That's my point. Ought we to do it?
That's my point. Is the women of today are not the women of yesterday, and it's becoming more and more difficult to find the women that you're talking about, and there are not enough to go around.
But you're framing.
That's my point.
Sure, but you're framing this as a question of who deserves to be married. But my framing of it is what one ought to do. That marriage is a natural end of our nature.
What kind of marriage, though? What kind of marriage is the end of our nature?
I don't deal in oughts. I deal with what is. Not what I want.
Okay. I'll take credit for that one. I think it has helped a lot of these bigger creators understanding descriptors versus prescriptions. Okay. I do think that I've helped them out a lot with that.
Not what I want the world to be.
But the is of our nature implies an ought in our actions.
And that is the flaw with natural law, what Knowles says right there. The is of your nature implies an ought. It does not. It cannot bridge the is-ought gap. There is no Catholic alive who can make an argument that is can be moved over to ought simply from natural law. That's a cope. It's not coherent. It's an incoherent argument. It's not valid. It's not sound. The premises do not follow. Valley Forge says for $20, that converted chick used it to get clout, suckered some of the right. Daily Wire, I believe, needs to stay in the lane of politics, not relationship advice. That's where I need to stay, too, because I don't give relationship advice ever, because I don't know shit about dating, and I don't want to know. Also, if OnlyFans chick quit, shouldn't she get rid of the lust blood money? I don't know. I don't know.
But it's not about what we want it to be, Michael. It's about what the world is.
No, I'm just saying how people ought to behave. And they ought to get married, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well,
which is implied by our nature, which is the is.
Okay.
Right? Because at the very least, bro, you would say people want to.
The downfall of Catholicism was Augustinian thought, yeah. Well, St. Augustine had all kinds of weird sexual shit. Kevin Barnes sends in $10, says, Pearl's points have all been made. Knowles is trying to take those points apart and failing miserably. I don't deal with oughts, I deal with what is. Spot on. Right. She's just giving descriptors. Arnold J says, I'm 42, never married. Nowadays, very hard to find a good woman to date. Women are not like before. It doesn't matter what religion you are of. I've heard this a lot.
Have kids, right?
I mean, if women wanted to have kids so bad, why are they killing them like crazy? You know.
Good question.
Yeah, there's a lot of abortionists.
Yeah.
What about, so would the natural law then imply that the nature of a woman is to be a mother? I think it would. So then how could the nature of the woman lead to ought to have an abortion? I'd like to know that answer. It sounds like the nature of a woman does not necessarily then imply motherhood if so many of them actually are assassinating their children, right?
Yeah, dreadful. But I'm just saying people in general, you would admit, want to have kids.
Sometimes they do and they don't. I mean, women aren't having kids like they used to. I talk to women all the time that say they don't want to have kids.
People, they say it's unfortunate. People say a lot of those things.
And that's where it's going.
But I guess,
but half of women are going to be single and childless by 2030.
What about
that's
these
the way
men?
the world's going.
The men you're talking about, the men want to have kids, right? Or no, they're also degenerates. Everyone's just a degenerate now.
Men want marriage, relationships, and family.
You say that, Andrew, but just by being on whatever, you seem to grasp dating a lot better than most. Now, what you do with that, since you don't care, I don't know. Well, let me explain. I want to know as much as I can about the world that I live in. So I find these topics interesting. But I will never give people relationship advice, and I don't give them life advice. I'm an internet YouTube entertainer. That's what I am. I'm not an advice giver. Okay? There's people who have contacted me and be like, man, I'd love to pay you to give me some kind of fucking life consultation. I'm like, dude, I'm an entertainer. I'm not here to do that. That's not my function. Give my takes. I give an entertaining show. I do bits and skits, and I'm just an entertainer. I'm not here to give anybody any advice at all. And I'm not ever going to. Now, I might make some courses on how to debate because people seem to ask for that a lot, but still not my advice that you even debate. If you want the courses, you can get them. Other than that, I don't really give a shit, right? You don't have to buy them if you don't want them. But I'm not in the business of being a guru or a life advice person. I'm not ever going to be. And at all. I'm just an entertainer. Andrew Starr sends in $5, says regular guys aren't as good as Daily Wire men, so they don't deserve pristine women, and they should be okay with their garbage past. I think Knowles is doing not so well here.
Men want that in general.
Okay.
But there are obstacles now that make it increasingly.
See, if people asked questions like that, I'd be way more inclined to answer them. This guy says, Andrew, how do I fix my AC unit? See, stuff like that. Like there's a guy I made the mistake one time in the Discord. There was a guy having car problems, and I said, hey, what's going on with it? And he said, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, send me a pic. And he did. And I helped him, fix the repair. I told him what I thought was wrong, and it turned out to be that way. That was a huge mistake, because the whole next week there was a ton of people in the Discord going, hey, Andrew, can you take a look? Like, I'm having trouble with my brakes. I'm having trouble with this. I'm having trouble. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not here to, like, what? That was a mistake. But I'd be more inclined to engage on those questions than I would be on what should I do about my relationship. How the hell would I ever know what you should do with your relationship? I don't know you, Living sends in $5, says, does Rachel have any issue with you being around the half-naked 304s when you go to other podcasts? No, they don't put their hands on me. And I don't do the flirting thing. I keep it completely professional.
Difficult for men to do that. One is that. Yeah, it's really common.
What does it say
you would sacrifice
about Knowles that a non-debater is beating his ass? Well, she's just handing him facts, and he doesn't seem to know what to do with them. Right?
One is that the women are increasingly lower quality. They've gained weight. The body count numbers are up.
Buy them a Stairmaster. I don't, get them a gym.
Oh, good luck. I tried to pay a girl to lose weight. I swear to God I did. Because she came on my show. No, I swear. I swear. And I said, because she was really fat, and I told her to. And I was like, I'll pay for your training. And I said, I'll give you a cash prize. I said, I'll give you $3,000 if you lose weight. That's a ton of money.
Yeah.
She couldn't do it. She couldn't stick to it for a month. Yeah.
Do I get the offer?
Well, you look like you're in shape.
Stop it. Come on.
But that's my point. One obstacle is that the women are lower quality. Okay. The benefits are not the same. Most women.
How do you feel about aluminum siding? I like aluminum siding. It really brings home the trailer trash look, I feel.
Are not raised to be traditional wives and mothers, and the cost is getting higher. So, it's becoming, divorces are getting more expensive, weddings are getting more expensive. So when you combine those,
they don't need to be, but they are often.
I agree, but it's not about what I want the world to be.
Crucible fans don't even read the Bible. Yeah, I'd love to see you do a debate with Chase Haggard. I'd love to see you do a debate with many of the Christian apologists who are on the Crucible and watch you just get fucking destroyed.
I'm Catholic too, and I think there's awesome things about the Catholic Church. But
that's a big but.
It's
never good to say I'm a part of this religion, but.
No, but it doesn't mean everyone's following it. It doesn't mean that's the norm. And I'm talking about what the world is, not what I want it to be.
No, but it's not just what you want it to be. I'm saying, like, if I'm a young man and I'm acknowledging a lot of the things you're saying, that's tough dating out there. Mm-hmm. But look,
he would have a better time if he acknowledged this as being true. If he acknowledged this as being true and then made his arguments based on it being true. If he adopted her worldview, he would do better here. Hammer Actual sends in $20, says, buckle up, the second half is going to be brutal. Knowles' strategy, the exception, never the rule, but Catholicism, though, and being out of touch as a rope-a-dope strategy to wear down via maneuver instead of argument. Really? Well, I'm looking forward to it. $5 from Damon Silver, who says, I'll courageously offer some life advice. Yellow snow is not food. Toilets aren't for tampons, and you should eat your vegetables with steak. I feel like I'm going to follow that life advice.
I want to have kids. I want to have a family. Mm-hmm.
Was that just free, though? Free advice that I will go to your website and take your course? Because you kind of sold me on it. I'm not going to lie.
I know you say you don't want to give men advice.
I say every man, you have to decide for yourself.
But let's say the man came to you and said, Pearl, I know what you, but I don't care what you want. I demand.
These hypothetical situations.
Well, we're just discussing a concept in the abstract.
They're not really discussing a concept in the abstract. Hammer Actual sends in $5 says, does Knowles play dumb or is it cognitive dissonance? I don't know what's going on here, but he's not really engaging with what she's saying.
I think you're kind of sneaking around giving advice because I think you're saying, look, through my reason, I've arrived at this conclusion about what's rational and advisable, but I'm not giving advice. So let's get through all that. Let's say the man comes to you and says, Pearl, give me the advice. Should I get married?
Are we reporters or preachers?
I'm just a writer and a talker.
But that's my point.
This was a great save by Pearl. Knowles says, okay, I don't believe you, Pearl. I think you don't want men to get married. So I want you to just tell me what you would do if a man actually came to you. So Pearl doesn't go for the debate and instead says, hey, I'm a reporter, not a preacher. I'm not telling you what you have to do. I'm just reporting to you what the facts are. And I can keep my opinions as to what you should do to myself and let you make them yourself. That's actually a really hard position to argue against. Dane Snyder sends in $5, says, Knowles never makes a point except get married or you're not a good Christian. He argues like a girl. The poor Miss Knowles is married to a woman. I think that that's an unfair characterization. I've watched some Knowles debates in the past. He's a fine debater, one of the best I've seen. And I'm not going to take that away from him. But in this conversation, I feel like he's not doing very well.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Your options are going to be completely different than another guy's options.
Why?
Because
I'm devilishly handsome.
Yeah. Devilishly handsome, Where that's not the case for every man has to decide for himself. Do you think men should be extremely cautious when getting married?
I think they ought to be extremely prudent.
This guy in chat says, I'm not smart enough to debate Andrew. That's okay. And I'm not smart enough to debate either, but I still do it. Kidding, joking. Somebody's going to clip it.
When getting married. Not cautious. I think courage is a virtue and the prerequisite for all the other virtues. So I don't think men should be little wallflowers backing away from a challenge, but they ought to be prudent. They ought to use their judgment properly. And so there are ways to mitigate risks within marriage. But furthermore, they ought to get married because that is the way to achieve the very thing you're suggesting they ought to, which is their purpose. What if no women
want to get married?
Well, they do want to get married.
No.
That's the way to achieve their purpose. I'm not sure that is achieving their purpose. So what I would ask here is, okay, what is their purpose? He would say marriage. I'd say to who? He'd say to one man, one woman. I'd say, okay. And then that's supposed to last for life, right? And he would say yes. And I'd say, okay, well, then it sounds like marriage and modernity would not be serving that purpose.
No, they don't.
I mean,
because when women have the most choice, we don't choose marriage. Women have the most choice when it comes to commitment around the age of 22. They're not choosing to get married. I don't pay attention to what people say.
No, you mean when they have the most options, when they're the most marriageable. But they do. But you will acknowledge those women who have been duped by feminism, maybe even after.
I'm not slandering St. Augustine. What are you talking about? I'm telling you that there was all sorts of weird sexual stuff that happened with St. Augustine, according to his writings.
After they're past their prime marriageable age, they come to
I don't blame it on feminism. I look at it different. I know women that have been raised in this culture that chose to get married at 22, waited till I know women that did the whole exactly what you're describing. So it was based on the choice. Every woman has choice. Every woman has agency.
And they got married.
Yes, but there's also women that chose to go on OnlyFans.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm saying.
I'm just saying, I think those women tend to regret it.
But I'm saying, I don't like blaming your decisions on society because at the end of the day, you are responsible for the decisions that you make.
Right, but your education is responsible for forming the way that you think about things, including marriage.
Wait, Nope, your education's not responsible for how you think about things. That would be the natural law. You have a purpose, right? And you're there to fulfill your purpose. What do you need this pesky education for in order to formulate a worldview? The natural law gives you a purpose, and you're there to fulfill the purpose.
people in the same education and they make different decisions.
When I mean education in the broad sense, meaning how people are raised, which gets to the point of marriage. Like,
but I know there's people that that are raised in bad environments and choose not to do that. Everyone has everyone's got free will, Michael.
Sure, but we're also shaped by our social context and our educations.
No, we're shaped by the natural law. We're just fulfilling our purpose.
But aren't you? You're responsible for the choices you make, right?
I'm a moral agent.
I
certainly,
am. Okay.
But I'm more morally free to act the more that I can discipline my lower passions and bring them into accord with my rational will, which is why I'm discussing marriage as a matter of reason. So I guess the question you'd have to ask is, even before we can say whether or not you want to give advice to men, but should they or shouldn't they? What is marriage for? Like, what's the point of it? Mm-hmm. So what's the point of marriage?
I think that the point of marriage is, it's to create a union. It's supposed to be you are submitting to your husband's authority and you're creating a family.
And creating a family.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's forming a union with certain roles and, a structure, and to create a family.
And do you think that's how it's being used today for the average person? For the average person.
Yeah, it forms a union. It creates a family.
The average marriage is 7 years.
Yeah, but it's a union.
But
see, I can already tell the fucking Catholics in the chat. I can already tell. This guy says marriage is for having kids. Really? That's all it's for? Or can you get married even if you're barren? I think you can. I think that the Catholic Church would say that you can and should. I think Knowles would say that you should. So clearly, it's not just for having kids, though that is one purpose of it. That's why the Orthodox don't believe that marriage is only for having kids. Though that is a purpose of marriage, yes. It's not its only purpose, nor its primary purpose.
I think there's more to marriage than you described, but I think that those are some basics.
The average marriage is 7 years.
Right, but that still forms a union and often creates a family. That's what you're talking about, the struggles in
right, but it's supposed to be for life, not for now.
I agree.
And that's what I say. It's not about what ought to be. It's about what is today. And right now, a man cannot have children in this country and not be signed up for the state contract. So
but that's always been true.
I think, but my point is, why can't we change the laws first?
Because we live in time and space, and you'll die alone without having had kids and without having the rise of a family.
Why? You guys are one of the most influential media networks.
We are. And we're very persuasive, very powerful.
You guys are.
And yet we're not changing the divorce laws. Try as we might. It hasn't happened.
No, but you guys barely cover it.
Yeah, well, they haven't tried to, so.
I talk about it all the time. What are you talking about? I talk about marriage on my show probably every single day.
Right, but when we talk about specifics, I was talking about the tender years doctrine.
Yeah.
It's like even in California.
Sure, but
if a woman lies about paternity of the child and it's not found out before the age of 2, that man's on child support for life, even though that woman committed fraud. And these are real things that happen in this country.
The man is on if the father doesn't discover that he's not really the father.
Yeah.
Because he's acting basically as like a duped adoptive father or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again.
Because the way the laws are is it goes in the best interest of to the child, which generally means the best interest of the mother.
Right, but you do not need to convince me that the divorce laws are dreadful.
Right.
What you do need to convince me of is that men ought not to be married until the laws are changed.
Okay. Let me see if I can make a convincing argument. 1, men should enter into covenant marriages, and they should remove themselves from any sort of state marriage whatsoever because it's not in their best interest to have a state marriage. It's in their best interest to have a community-based covenant marriage with their church. That's what's in their best interest. And they ought not get involved with a state contract. They ought not do that. If they do get married, they ought to still, even in a covenant marriage, if they're going to have a contract, have some kind of prenup. Okay? That's the second thing. I would still have something there. Third thing is that I'd say is that if you claim that men ought to get married from a religious standpoint, can you explain to me why it is that you would endorse secular marriage or satanic marriage or things like this? And if your only excuse for this is natural law, then I would be taking significant issue with that. Okay? Significant issue with that. So, yeah, I don't think that, I would enjoy tangling on this topic with Knowles. I really would. I would adore it.